Hello, today we're going to spend some time on choosing and developing a topic. And while this is prefaced as being something that's writing a good paper, this really has to do with any sort of writing or any sort of research that you might be doing, the steps and what's important to think about as you are investigating or looking into various different things. My focus is really going to be today on our passion projects. Some of you actually were able to complete a passion project. Some of you really didn't make it very far. And sometimes the reason that could be is because of the direction we chose. It's still a learning process. We're still going to learn something from it as we sort of maybe dissect what didn't go well or what did go well when we evaluate our passion projects in the next couple of weeks. But today, our focus is going to be on choosing and developing a topic for whatever writing process. This is talking from a research paper, but it really does have to do with any type of writing or investigation that you're going to do. The first step is going to be you always have to start with a little research. There has to be a question, a little basis for you to go off of, and some things for you to investigate in order for you to decide on a topic. The subject that you will be researching and the one that you'll be writing about is going to be the end goal. This is why a topic is very important, okay? Most writers learn that when you present a well-defined, focused, and developed topic, they do a better job of holding the reader's attention and presenting the appropriate information. You have to think about what you're writing from the reader's perspective. You all have experienced reading something that's really boring or confusing, and that can be because the story wanders or the topic isn't focused, and it makes you very confused on understanding what's going on. So when you're thinking of a topic, you need to think with your audience in mind. The way you set forth the topic of your paper will determine how easily you can find sources and how easy it will be to write the paper. If you develop your topic properly, it's going to be easier to do research and find sources that you can use. And a good topic statement or a good question is going to result in a very well written paper. The next important thing is that it's your writing, it's your paper, it's your inquiry, it's your question, okay? Choose something that interests you. You'll enjoy and do a much better job on whatever it is that you're doing if you are interested in that. When we have a passion and interest for something, we share that with people, and you can tell that when you read something, when someone has a passion, there is a different type of writing. It's not dull and boring. Once you've decided on a topic, do some general background research on it. Read about your topic in books, magazines, and newspapers before you develop your topic. Only after you have done that should you begin to start the research, the real research necessary to write the paper. This is where we've talked about Wikipedia being something that's okay for you to use. It's sort of that springboard to give you some ideas, to give you some guidelines of things to look into. If you have done a good job in selecting a topic at the first, the rest of your job is going to be easier, less time consuming, and more enjoyable. All right. So when we're learning more about a topic, you want to do that background research. It provides an introduction by listing key ideas, sort of gives you that framework of what you need. We've talked about writing an outline. This would be the part that helps you put together that outline before you actually start trying to pull the data and the quotes and the evidence that you might need. You'll get important dates or concepts of that subject. It'll often also identify what prior research has been done and may provide a preliminary bibliography for a research paper. So you can find some of those research tools that you need as you're doing this background looking. You can find background information in a variety of sources. Some are listed here, but we know you have access to books. You have access, Wikipedia would be okay for that springboard to help you create that outline. Encyclopedias, maybe there's a book that spurred, newspapers, magazines, the almighty Google. You have a lot of places to start with. When you start off your topic, it should be broad enough to give you several search options. That is, enough information to write about the topic in different ways. Don't start off with a very narrow topic because you might not be able to find enough sources. The best way to choose a topic is to start off with a broad topic and then narrow it down. Within a general topic, you're going to find millions of subtopics, and we'll be taking a look at some of those later on. So when we start with a broad topic, two problems that you might encounter when doing your research is, first of all, a topic that is too broad, you end up with too many resources. The second problem might be a topic that's too narrow, that doesn't provide you with enough resources to write your paper. So you have to find that sweet spot in the middle. Don't start off with a very narrow topic, okay? You're not going to find enough places. I know that some people experience this with what they were trying to look into. Another thing is that when things are really new or very focused, that's also a difficult time to find resources. When you start off your topic, it should be broad enough to give you several search options. That is, enough information to write about the topic in some different ways. And the best way, again, reinforcing this, to choose a topic is to start off with a broad topic and then narrow it down. Your topic should be focused enough that you are not overwhelmed with information. If you were to perform a search on Galileo for a very broad topic, you would get a large and unmanageable number of results, okay? If you searched Galileo for the term Ebola, Galileo is actually a database, okay? So it's like where we've talked about Nebraska Access. So let's say you went out to Google, okay? And you can do this later. Go out and on Google and search for the term Ebola and see how many results that you receive. You are going to receive hundreds of thousands of results. Change the topic so that you get fewer results. A search for Ebola and healthcare workers narrows that down quite a bit. You might be looking for Ebola in a certain area of the country, maybe, or in the world, or maybe in our own country, or within a certain outbreak. A different search that they looked for was Ebola and protective clothing. So it all sort of depends on the direction that you are going to take your research. Okay. Here's some other examples. Women's health and computer games. So we're going to look at too broad, narrowed, and a focus topic. So the broad topic is women's health. If you went out and looked that up, you're going to get hundreds of thousands of results. We're going to narrow it down to women and cancer. Okay, still fairly broad because there are multiple types of cancer that exist out there. And you, in your time frame, probably don't have time to write about all the different types of cancer. So if we want to focus that more in our interest area, we might just look at women and breast cancer, or we narrow it down even more to say women smokers and breast cancer. You want to answer that question of how much does that affect women who have breast cancer. Again, this is where those good questions are very important. Here's another one, broad topic, computer games. That's huge. How many different types of computer games are there? Just think of brands, think of the systems that you play on, think of the years that they've been out. Are we talking about playing Pong, or are we talking about the latest technology? So we need to narrow it down. Maybe we want to look into computer games and violence. Okay, that's narrower, still has some results. More focused would be to look at computer game violence and children. We want to look at that specifically versus computer game violence and adults. And you could even probably narrow it down a little more from then, but that's a good place to start. Here's some other examples. If we look at terrorism, you can remember back to some of the activities we did at the beginning of the year when we looked at 9/11. Okay, if you just look up at 9/11, that's too broad. Terrorism is too broad. There are too many types of terrorism, different places, different years. Okay, so let's narrow it down. We might look at terrorism in the Arab-Israeli conflict, or we might look at the threat of bioterrorism in the United States. Another example is climate change. This is too broad, so we narrow it down. How do gasoline-powered cars... Look at this. We have a question. This is why I like the questions and why questions are so important. How do gasoline-powered cars in Las Vegas affect average summer temperatures in Nevada? Oh, wait a minute. This one is too narrow, okay? You're not going to find much, if anything, on this topic because it's too specific. So now we're going to back that up a little bit and say, okay, how do gasoline-powered cars contribute to climate change? Here you're going to find a better variety of articles and information on this topic. It's just about right. It's going to give you a manageable amount of information. Trees. This topic is too broad. How many kinds of trees are there out there? Well, let's think about what do you want to know? What question are you looking to ask? See, as we're getting into developing topics, we're getting into asking questions, okay? What are the healing properties of tree bark? Okay, this is better. You'll probably find some things out there. Or should the lumber industry be more heavily regulated? This topic is also better. It depends on what you're curious about, what you want to know. Backed up, so we want to go on to this last one. Okay, here's some things to remember. 1, when you're choosing a topic, do some background research. You want to look at magazines, encyclopedias, and the internet to just get you a sort of a basic outline of where you're going to start. You have to think about how much time you have to complete this assignment, how many pages you have to explain what you're trying to get to, and you want to choose a topic that could be finished in that time. That's where it's going to help you to decide how far you're going to narrow down a topic. Okay. Third, you want to be very clear about the topic you're choosing. If you are not clear about your topic, you're going to get off track and waste time. Your writing also gets confusing, so it's important to have a solid topic with a good question that you're looking to address. Fourth, choose a topic that's appropriate to the length of your paper. Broad topics involve more time and effort than most students have time to invest. So if you're writing a 5-page paper, you should have a narrow topic, and that's really where you're at right now. In the coming week, we are going to be taking a look at our passion projects and sort of diagnosing what went well and what didn't go well. How we address our topic is one of those things that you're going to reflect on. So this information is going to be necessary. If you find that it would be good for you to go back and take some notes in this presentation, I encourage you to do so. It will also be available for you to look back at.